Today we're going to analyze a poem called Porch Swing in September by Ted Kuser. The porch swing hangs fixed in a morning sun that bleaches its gray slats, its flowered cushion, whose flowers have faded like those of summer. And a small brown spider has hung out her web, on a line between porch post and chain, so that no one may swing without breaking it. She is saying it's time that the swinging were done with. Time that the creaking and pinging and popping that sang through the ceiling were past. Time now for the soft vibrations of moths, the wasp tapping each board for an entrance, the cool dewdrops to brush from her work every morning, one world at a time. So first of all, as we're reading this, we want to look at things that are being repeated and what they could symbolize. For example, September. When I think of September, I think of things beginning, like school and fall. When we look at the porch swing, I symbolize or associate relaxing, watching neighbors, very summery. When I think of spiders, usually build webs. They're a type of insect. They are also hard workers, and a lot of people are afraid of them, and they also represent good luck. And then when I think of a wasp, I think of that as an angry insect like a bee that attacks, that's dangerous. So when I'm looking through here, I'm looking at some of those symbols. Then it says, why do you think the poet chose a spider as the main character? It seems like we're really kind of just looking at a porch swing all alone with nobody around except for this little tiny spider taking care of her business. How does the sound techniques, such as alliteration, automatopoeia, help us visualize the mood? Well, let's kind of think about some of those examples there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for examples of sound techniques. One of the very first things that pops out on my mind is alliteration, like swing in September. When I notice that that's S sound. As I go through, I can highlight other examples of alliteration, like swing, slats, sun, summer. Notice how my alliteration that I'm finding all begins with the S, and it's not just in one sentence, but throughout. Notice with the swing, slats, summer, swing. Also look at this one, ceiling. So even though it doesn't begin with that S sound, it's still the S letter, it still has the same sound, like sang, soft. The S sound in itself is very soothing. When I'm also looking at it, I can also find examples like flowers, faded, flowered. If I'm going through, I can see from. So I can find examples of the F sound being repeated as well. I also can look here and see that I'm looking at porch swing or porch post, which is the P sound that's being shared with us. If I'm going through and I look for other P sounds like pinging and popping, I'm really going to highlight part of it, and I'll tell you why in just one second. So right there I was looking at a lot of alliteration. Now this poem also has examples of automatopoeia, like pinging. So I'm going to highlight that in gray. Popping, I'm going to highlight that in gray. Tapping is another example of automatopoeia. If I look at things like repetition, I can see that I'm repeating the morning and time. Notice down here. And down here I repeat the morning. I'm repeating the idea of time being over. Okay, if you look in this stanza here. Time now. Time for it to be over. I also have examples of imagery. So if I look at some strong word choice, like bleaches, when I think of bleaches, I think of things that are fading away. And I also see the word faded there. If I keep going through, I can see the word vibrations, which is another imagery word. Cool dewdrops. So I have a lot of sound techniques, and I also have some examples of figurative language. For example, personification. If you look here, this is an example of personification where our character is talking to us, our spider. Our spider is working. Our other animal that's being mentioned, the wasp, is looking for an entrance. We have a spider that's doing her work. So these are all examples of that as well. Now that I've kind of pulled out some of the stylistic elements, I want to look at the poem again. The theme of this poem is that everything must end. So if I go back to this story, this poem, I can see that the meaning is going to be about that summer has to end. It's time to stop relaxing and enjoying being on the porch, looking out. It's time to get to work. The animals that are talking to us and acting towards us, the moth, the spider, they're telling us it's time to begin our work. So if we look here and we're looking at our theme of everything must end, and we try to find examples of that theme, and we highlight in orange, which I don't have orange, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my bold. But think about the idea of fixed in a morning sun. Something that is fixed means that it's not moving, and the porch swing isn't moving. We have the idea of gray, something that's not colored. We have the idea of summer coming to an end. Without breaking it, even if I look at this is important as well, that we're not breaking that enjoyment that we're having. Things have to be over with, to be done with. Time has to come to an end. So notice those are another examples. That sang through the ceiling were past. Once again, the idea of being over. Time now for moths to begin. An entrance is another example of something having to begin. Every morning, one world at a time. And that's how you analyze a poem.